Okay, Shako, what do you think that is the most important thing that is required to have a better food system? Easy question to start.
Easy question to start today's episode.
What is the thing that's like, if this happens, we will have a better food system?
Investing in farmers,
Okay. Why?
because after several talks, I came to understand that that is more or less lacking in some places.
For me, the thing that is more important is to make people to value food. No, like they need to understand the value of food.
Mm-hmm.
But in these two things that we have said really different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There is a common point, and that is CrowdFarming. That is going to be what we're going to be discussing today. CrowdFarming, for those ones that don't know, it's a online platform where people can buy directly from farmers boxes with fresh fruits. They can also adopt trees
and animals.
And animals, yeah, true. They can also adopt your own cow,
Yeah.
And then you can get it for you. And what their work is just being astonishing.
This means that this is going to be a very good conversation, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, they are doing a great job. I'm really, really fascinated to have them here in the podcast. So, dear listeners, we now leave you with a conversation with Juliette Simonin, co-founder of CrowdFarming. Hello, Juliette. Welcome to Tomorrow's Bites. We are very glad to accept the invitation. We have been commenting before the starting of the recording. We are both true believers of what CrowdFarming is doing, and having the chance to speak with one of the founders for us is it's an honor. And therefore, we just wanted to start this conversation. We normally do it by making something for the guests to introduce themselves a little. So just to change it from other times, if you had to describe yourself using 3 words, which ones would you choose?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Taimi. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really happy also to get to have this discussion with you, and I'm really, really happy to hear that you're using CrowdFarming. It's always very good news for us. Thank you. So 3 words for me, and I would say I'm a curious person, very interested in a lot of things. I love learning new things, and even if it's like, just for the fun of it. And I've always been like this. I think I'm quite dynamic. I like that things move up. And so that would be the second one. And the third one, I guess, would be that I like one-to-one conversation. I mean, I like groups, but I'm a person I really like getting into details and having this type of, very detailed conversation, getting to know someone a bit more outside of a group effect, for example.
This is a 2-to-1. I hope
it's fine. It's fine. 2-to-1 is still fine. Okay, for this one.
Yeah. Have you always been this way, like even when you were younger, or it's something that it's been evolving?
I guess I've always been like this, but it's true that the one-to-one thing is something a bit like, well, it's going to be sad because I'm going to say it's when I'm getting older, I guess, where you're expecting like you really want to. Yes, we're getting older and you're like, if you want to get quality conversation or get more into some personal or thinking, maybe it's easier when you're not a huge group, even though I love groups again. So I guess it's more something of the older Juliette, the last one.
Looking into that, I can understand that you were that you describe yourself as a curious person and always want to learn more in different things, because you already mentioned your company that you created, CrowdFarming, but actually, if I have to connect the dots from your early years, it wasn't directly towards what the CrowdFarming is doing, actually. How did that happen? Like, like, how were those first years, actually? Where was the Juliette at that time?
Well, that's a very good question, because indeed it's not very easy to understand. And to be honest, there is not much link. or at least you cannot find it on the thing is, I studied economics and it was great. And then I started to work in an insurance company. I learned a lot, great colleagues, but it's true that after a few years, I was starting to say, I mean, I'm enjoying myself. I'm doing great things. I was actually working for Latin America and Africa. So it was very interesting, high growth countries, lots of things to learn. So I couldn't complain at all. But it's true that I realized I wanted to work on something that I would understand better and that would be more concrete. Like, for example, insurance and insurance policy. Well, it's not the simplest thing in the world. Well, fruit, I mean, you eat fruit normally every day, or you try to if you're a healthy person, and it's easier to understand. And also at that time, I started to have like a bit of, I always liked eating and cooking. And I started to realize, well, there are scandals every 2 days. You buy something, you don't know what's in there. Farmers are not getting paid fairly. It's been the problem for years. So I started to look into this industry, saying, well, that's something I would love to support and do something for that. And because I'm very curious, I started talking to people and saying, I don't know, is there a solution? And out of that, and that's, things that happen in life that you don't prepare. But in 1 week, I was already living in Spain. 2 people talked to me about 2 brothers that were doing something very interesting in Valencia with an orange field, and they were selling directly to end consumers. And I had to meet them because if I were having those questions, they were finding answers and everything. So obviously, I got in touch with them. And that's how I met my future co-founders, Gonzalo and Gabriel. And it was a typical day. They invited me over and we were started discussing. And I was like, wow, what they're doing is wonderful. So I got out of the meeting. I was like, they're a bit crazy because they want to change the food supply chain, and it's huge. Like there is so much to do, but then it's so inspiring. So I got out of the meeting like this, and we kept in touch. And it turned out that they were thinking about doing other things. I had a very different profile compared to them. They were working a lot with our fourth co-founder Moises, who is a tech guy. And it was like we started in like meeting. Sometimes I would help them out saying, oh yeah, let me check out this business plan. Let me check out that. And step by step, we started seeing each other very often. And that's how the whole CrowdFarming idea came up from their experience and how we decided the four of us after a bit of time to create CrowdFarming. So it was really like a long process and more of obviously I was curious about food and agriculture and everything, but it was also meeting the right persons at the right moment that really made the change.
What were they doing exactly in that moment? They were just making boxes and selling them online directly to consumers. It was that what they were doing when you arrived, or it was something different?
Well, I mean, first of all, they still have their own company. It's a family company called Naranjas del Carmen that's still working, and it's a very successful company. So on that, I mean, they are and they should be very proud because they managed to have 2 companies. What they were doing at that time was they were selling directly their oranges, well, mainly oranges from their production, to the end consumer. What was different was that first they were and they had been pioneering for a few years in Valencia organic agriculture because they came back from Germany and Austria, and they saw that there it was something important, and they started to have this conscious of, okay, I don't want to put all this synthetic pesticide in my fields. So they were doing that. They were selling all over Europe, not only in Spain. That was also very different. And then they were having very interesting ideas to create a link between the consumer and the producer. For example, at one point, and actually it was the start of CrowdFarming, they had a small initiative called CrowdFarming because they needed to renew they needed to plant new trees, and they didn't have the money to plant the new trees. Like it's quite costly, and the first years you don't have any production, so it's complicated. And so they had this great idea. Why don't we make people adopt the new trees? We will send them oranges from the older trees so that they receive a harvest and they have something. But then they will create this connection with the tree, and it will be their tree, and they feel something. And it was a huge success, something they thought would be like, it will help us out in the financing of this new part, got completely crazy. And they realized people were really looking forward to getting information on what's happening on the fields, to getting to know the farmer. And that was one of the biggest inspiration, obviously, for CrowdFarming later on.
I'm really wondering, you said that you had several talks with them and you got your interest within food, also because of things that you saw in the news and scandals, etc. What were the shocking facts that you still have in your mind? Well, that were for you the reasons actually to step towards the things that you're doing right now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know where to start, to be honest. It's a bit sad. I don't want to be depressing, but whether it's all like how agriculture is actually responsible for about, if you take the entire food system, 30% of greenhouse gas effects, whether it is that farmers are not getting enough to live on in Europe, whether it is that we're facing a situation where young generation do not want to go farming because it doesn't make sense, because all of that, but we still need to eat. I think there are so many problems, to be honest. And apart from that, as the consumer is getting more and more, at least I would say the word is conscious. So they're trying to buy the right thing. Sometimes people are kind of doing greenwashing just to, that will sell better. So I don't want to point out anyone here, but that's something we're trying to fight against with CrowdFarming, saying the truth. Sometimes the truth is hard to say, but it's what it is. And there are so many things where we can act. And actually, that's one of our issues, if I may say so, at CrowdFarming. Sometimes we're like, oof, I didn't mention food waste, which is another problem, but I'd love to tackle so many issues. And no, you need to actually choose some of them or one and really, really fight for this one so as to be efficient, because otherwise it's complicated.
Yeah, I can fully understand.
Were you expecting that the first initiative, like this first pilot of crowdfarming, was so successful? Like, did you have between in your insights, like, yeah, people is going to love this? Or were you actually surprised? There is so many people caring about this, because I think that there is this thing that we tend to say, like, yeah, people does not care so much about organic, or people does not so care so much about where the food comes from, sustainability. I think that there is a part of truth in there, but at the same time, it is more people than when it seems, in that not so many.
That's a very tricky question, because I think what we're trying to do at CrowdFarming is not only to sell the value proposition of sustainability. First of all, because it's, something you always have to work on. So it's hard to put yourself a medal saying, "Oh yeah, I'm being sustainable." No, you need to work on that and try to improve every day. So in a sense, I think you're right when you're saying people don't care. It's true that in so many ways, it's not the only argument for buying. It's one of them. That's what I was saying. People are getting more and more conscious, but I don't think it's the only reason. And if it were the only reason buying on crowdfarming, probably we wouldn't have the traction we've had. Here, I think what we're trying to do with crowdfarming is to give people a solution where they get access to information, real information. And I think on this, yes, we're looking, and especially in this new era of fake news and everything, yes, we're trying to get access to what I'm buying. Is it really coming from this area? Is it really organic? Is it really from this farmer? And also make it a nice experience. And I think when I say a nice experience, it seems like obvious, but it's okay. When you receive fruits from crowdfarming, when you're ordering, the fruits or the veggie are still on the trees or in the fields. So we harvest on demand, which seems like okay. It has consequences. You cannot receive it by the next day. So it has other, let's say, drawbacks. But the good thing is it's really fresh because I ship it to you in the fastest way possible. So probably you can have it in many countries. For example, in Germany, you will have your oranges 3 days after they were harvested, which is like impossible to find that almost in a supermarket. Or at least in Germany it is. So you feel the fresh fruit. And so it's like, okay, I get the information. I create a link with a farmer. I know they're paid the right price because farmers are fixing their price. And apart from that, my orange tastes great. So that's where maybe you make the difference.
You talk about experience, and I'm wondering what kind of tools or practices does crowdfunding farming takes into place to bring the experience towards the consumer? Because also in the beginning you mentioned we wanted to connect basically the farmer, so you start off the chain with the end consumer, and that Is it tricky? Is like we have seen how complex the food system is nowadays. How do you build that? Like what kind of strategies do you put into place?
That's a huge question, and we're still working on it, to be honest. Well, I think that the first strategy is really the first step for us was really a marketplace strategy, which is you need to. I mean, for a marketplace to work, it seems like obvious, but you need to have buyers and you need to have sellers. And it sounds very easy, but it was very complicated because obviously, if you don't have enough sellers, buyers are not going to come to your marketplace because there is no variety and they're not going to find much. But then if you don't have buyers, sellers do not want to sign with you because why would I come to you if I'm not going to sell anything? So we had to face this kind of dilemma at the beginning, which was really hard. And it was really working both on demand and supply at the same time, which is a balance you need to find. So that was I would say, the first thing to really create this link, as you were asking, between consumer and farmer. And then obviously, when we were working on supply, we tried to go for supply where we knew the experience would be good. Like, for example, oranges. Oranges, they're great for shipping over Europe. They are good fruits to ship over Europe. To be honest, we started apricots a bit too early in our research on packaging and logistics. And we had a horrendous experience where I think I will always remember this pallet that arrived to Germany with all those apricot boxes. And there were actually something happened. Maybe it was a bit too hot. Well, nothing is too sure. But in the end, the boxes were actually, well, there was liquid getting out of the boxes. So it was terrible, like the worst experience you can have. And it was like, whoa. So we had to learn the hard way too. But obviously it's putting products that people are used to eat so that it's interesting for them to come to the platform, and making sure afterwards, and this is very complicated, it sounds obvious, but it's not, that the experience will follow and that they will receive good product at home.
What is the challenge on getting sellers exactly? Because I understand for how buyers is difficult to get them, to convince them that paying your product is going to be valuable because they don't know still. But what is the difficulty from the side of the seller?
That's a very good question. For us, it has been at the beginning, mainly for a farmer to accept, to say, I'll try with you, because there were unfortunately many experiences of direct to consumer, and there were many were not very successful. And there were even cases where the farmer did not get paid in the end at all because they got bankrupt. And so at the beginning, when you arrive and you're a very, very young company, not to say you don't have anyone yet, and you're like, no, don't worry, you'll get the fair price. But I'm going to start with you. Some of them were like, look, it's already hard for me to be selling my product. Like, I'm not going to take a chance. So on this, we were very lucky to have this network of farmers, thanks to Gabriel and Gonzalo, who are farmers also. So they had their network of friends and people they know that were like, okay, we'll trust you. It's hard, but we'll trust you. And then the other thing that is not that obvious is that selling directly to end consumer, even if you're selling at a fair price, it's a lot of work for a farmer because their supermarket or the traditional supply chain works in a way, and directly to the end consumer works in a different way. And so we realized after a few trials that it really makes sense if you manage to sell some volume for the farmer. Otherwise, even if she's getting a better price, in the end, it's so much work apart from what they're doing already that it might not be worth the try. So that also really, really was a challenge, because we knew, well, we need to ensure that we have this minimum volume so that farmers feel that they are doing something that makes sense and they really see the impact of this fair price.
Yeah. Just to understand clearly, because I have no clue, what are the big differences between the current settled way of getting the products from the farmer towards the supermarkets and your way directly to consumers?
Okay, I'll try not to be too, because obviously it's a bit cliche what I will say, because you obviously have so many different ways. But in general, when a farmer is working with the traditional food supply chain, they will sell their harvest to a intermediary that will come over, sent over by a supermarket or by a wholesaler that then sells to a supermarket, that will come and check the harvest, and they will get this price for the harvest, which is something people should know. It's not negotiated beforehand. So it's like when it's harvest time, they come and they say a price. So you can imagine the stress as being a farmer, because maybe this price does not even cover your costs. And there has been years where we've seen that, where farmers actually left very dramatic years because there were many imports in the European Union, for example, for oranges. And they just said, okay, up to now, it's better for me to just leave the fruit on the tree than to harvest or do something more, because I'm going to lose even more money. So, I mean, this is the way. So the intermediary comes and they will take the fruit up to the next step, which can be another intermediary, another wholesaler, and then up to the end where it reaches the supermarket. When you're working on farm, at least in our model, we have a contract that is, first of all, we have a price for the next year. So it's like when you're starting the season, what usually we do is that we would discuss with the farmer. They have a clear view on what were their costs, and they fix a price where they consider that they will have not only be able to cover the cost, but obviously to have a margin, which seems obvious for any business, but it's not so obvious when you're a farmer. And then from that, what we do is we will try to grow the sales together. Obviously, we're not exclusive, so they can definitely, and many of them still sell to others, and we think it's healthy. It's fine for we're trying to also support the farmers in getting more options to sell their product, not less. So we're not exclusive, but we agree on, okay, so on CrowdFarming this year, I'd like to have this amount of my products being sold. So we put this on sale. They see the evolution. The good thing is that we can sell at any time, even if it's not harvest time. For example, right now, thanks to the adoption model, which we can discuss about afterwards, we have mangoes. Mangoes season starts in September, but we have mangoes being sold right now. So farmers are seeing, okay, my harvest season is already being sold. So it's great. And then when it's time, what we do is we organize with them the harvest. So, and that's where obviously there are more constraints, because they actually harvest on demand. So they will know, like, this week you have 1,000 boxes to prepare of 5 kilos. So I need that many kilos and we go and pick them up at their farm, and then we make the boxes. So that's the difference in terms of how it works. The huge difference in the end is also when you're selling to an intermediary, or let's say in the traditional supply chain, except if there is a huge problem in quality when it reaches their warehouse, you don't get any feedback on your fruit, because your fruit is going to be mixed somewhere. I mean, just like when we go to the supermarket, it's like orange. Maybe there is a label if it's recognized, but there is no origin, maybe country, if you're lucky, but that's it. Obviously, at CrowdFarming, farmers get lots of feedback from the people they're sending to, because they're individuals like us. So they're going to say, oh, I love your mango this year. Or, I don't know why. It seems that. And so the farmer learns, and that really makes them also, that it gives them those tools to improve. And not only improve what they're doing right now, but also for investment. We have farmers, they've asked their community of buyers, I'm wondering whether I should grow grapefruit or lemons because I have this opportunity. Do you have any interest? And yeah, 60% of them said grapefruits. Well, I'll go for grapefruit because I already have this demand. So this type of things that you don't have in the traditional supply chain because you're completely disconnected.
I love that. I love to hear that, actually.
Yeah, really nice.
We just always defend from the podcast the importance of the people knowing where the food comes from, because then that is when they value it. No,
Absolutely.
And I think that definitely, like, this connection between the farmer and the consumer, that unfortunately is being lost. You know, before when my grandparents, my father now also, when we go to the market, they normally speak with people in there that they know really well the product, and they can have this conversation, and they can, in some way, in my opinion, it's a romantic way of relating, like talking with food, talking about food. And I think that every time that is more lost, and I'm really happy to hear that there are like initiatives like this, like motivates people to connect with the ones growing, because in the end it's practically the most important job in the world.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
It's true what you're saying, and it makes me think of something that's always very funny. Obviously, to sell directly to the end consumer, you need as a farmer to communicate about yourself, and you can see it on the website. And many times for them, it's really hard, especially at the beginning, like for everyone, because they're like, first of all, they see it like, okay, it's my daily job, but I don't think anyone is interested. And when they start seeing that, when they share with the community pictures, like, look, there was this sunrise on the fields today, or, oh, I was working on that and I was doing some pruning, and they see people saying, oh, thank you for sharing. Wow, that's so nice. How interesting. Can you give me more information about how you do that and why you do this? Farmers actually, like, it's very interesting how you see the transformation. Some of them told us, I actually realized I was doing something very interesting. Like maybe before it was like, I'm doing my job. I love it because I love being outdoor. I love being in the field, but it's for me. But I didn't realize people could be interested in what I do. And I think it's really funny because we have some farmers that really transform into great influencers about what they're doing, what is farming. So it's a very nice story.
But I believe that because in some way it is sold in mass media or wherever that people is not interested in that, because people seem to be more interested in their own stuff, or because in the end it's...
Don't you think it's a fact like that we are just lost this connection along the way? Like there's so much more other impulses that we have, and like the connection to food is just more and more
Indeed, but I think that
news markets here in the Netherlands,
that feeding the narrative creates a bigger effect in that. It's like they are just pointing out like, yeah, people is not interested, and then therefore what you do is that the ones that are growing are also not interested in showcasing because they believe, yeah, nobody really cares about this, and then you create also a bigger gap, so that only like in some way feeds again the fact. I'm not saying it's true. There's every time more people less interested about it, but it's because they're not being exposed to it as well. I think that's part of it. In CrowdFarming, you have a big focus on organic, no? That is like...
We do.
Is it that, maybe I'm wrong, but all the farmers that sell there is because they have organic practices or regenerative practices?
Yeah, that's a huge point too. So we have almost all sellers that are organic or in transition to organic. What is true is that we have some exceptions on some products, but mainly we're very, very in favor of organic agriculture. In fact, when I'm saying we have farmers in transition to organic, we have a program to support farmers into transitioning.
I wanted to ask you about that exactly. I'm really interested about it. Like, is there any program or any...
Yes,
please,
we do. We do have,
share it,
and we're really proud of it. So thank you for asking me, because I think it's complicated, and especially, I don't know if you've heard, but the organic market in Europe has been decreasing from 2022. It's getting stable, but it's not growing so much. And there are farmers actually doing the other way around. Like they were in organic and they see, woof, it's not selling as much as I thought, and it's not worth the change. So I'm going to go back to conventional. So we're really proud to keep trying this. There is data which I think is really sad, but the European Union was saying, oh, by 2030, we should have 25% of our agricultural fields in organic. In 2022, I think we're at about 10%.
Well,
and I think
it's going to be a crazy 5 years.
We're not going to reach. I mean, like everyone is saying, we're not going to reach it. So I think it's like, and it's really sad because this goal was put in the first place because we see advantages for everyone and even the society in Europe for people to grow organic. So that's why it's so important for us. So just to answer your question, so we have two programs. We have one for transition to organic and one for transition to regenerative agriculture, which are two things usually, except for very, very motivated farmers. We have one case, but usually you start with the transition to organic. And then when you're organic, maybe you're interested in the transition to regenerative. Why do we do that? We do that because we believe like agriculture can be a solution and is not so much of a problem in everything that is related to environment and greenhouse gas effects. So we want to see that, okay, we want to be part of this change. And also because, to be extremely pragmatic, organic and regenerative make the farms more resilient. So when we're talking about drought, when we're talking about disasters, natural disasters, which are going to be more and more often happening, because that's where we're heading right now. We're giving the tools, or we believe to be giving the tools for the farmers to be more, actually to be able to resist. And they're seeing also results in that sense. So the program for a transition to organic, it's very easy. It's basically when you're transition to organic, when it's fruit, for example, on a tree, it takes 3 years. So you say to the organic organization of your country, hi, I want to grow and become organic. They come and they make you sign a paper. And then you have 3 years before you become organic officially. And in the meantime, you're still a conventional farmer. The problem is that in the meantime, you're not giving fantastic pesticide and all of that to your production, so you usually lose yield. And sometimes you need to invest a bit more in people, because organic agriculture requires a bit more work. So it's very difficult for farmers to make this step, because it's like, okay, I'm going into 3 years of uncertainty. I'm going to lose money. I'm not sure afterwards. I'm not sure, never sure on the price. Even if it's organic, it's supposed to be a bit higher. But as I was saying before, it's not like you're sure you're going to get a fair price in the end. And so what we have seen, which is really, it's always very inspiring. And as you were saying, people sometimes do care. We've seen that there are people that are okay with paying a bit more for a product that is in transition to organic, because the product in transition to organic, even if the product is not organic yet as such with the label, obviously there is no more residues of any type, so it's really residues free. And we have a community at CrowdFarming of consumers that are saying, okay, I agree with paying a bit more than for a conventional, so that it helps the farmer in their transition. And then obviously when it's organic, the price gets a bit higher. But I feel like it makes a lot of sense. And so we have had like a lot of support on this program. And it's the small, in the end, it's more than anything else, giving a channel, a sales channel to a farmer, saying, if you're in transition to organic, you can sell for a bit more than what you were selling in conventional. So you can compensate for the yields you're going to lose, and maybe for the first extra investment that you will have to make until you're completely organic. I'm saying first extra investment because it's true that afterwards, on the long run, whether you're doing organic or regenerative, as you're using less and less intrants, usually you actually lower your costs. But it's on the long run. That's a problem. You need to wait for a long time. So it's always the same problem. The first years are really, really hard. So that would be for the program for conversion to organic. And once you're organic, we have a program for conversion to regenerative. We believe in organic regenerative agriculture. So there it's a bit different, because as you may know, regenerative does not have a label. So it's really context-based. And here it's based on analysis of soil, water, biodiversity, which is being done through experts, and which will help you out define the right practices to improve the quality of your soil, which will also result in better results, better yields, better production, the biodiversity, and the water use. This is really depending on where you are, which type of farming you're doing, what is the land you're working on. You will start implementing some of practices or others, even if they are a very common one, like cover crops. That's a very common one that lots of, in regenerative, everyone is using. So this program is really about what we do at CrowdFarming here. We're doing the measurements for them so that they can see the evolution, and we're publishing them on the website so that also the consumer can see the evolution. And we're helping them out, finding experts. We're organizing group sessions on specific topic that they're interested in, depending on the region. So that's the regenerative program.
Well, that's really, really interesting. And overall, as I said, I was looking forward to hear something about like if there was like any support, because as you were mentioning, it's hard for farmers sometimes to also. Sometimes it's hard for a matter of not knowing, like where to start, or like not knowing like where are the steps that can be done. And for them also, like I guess doing it for you gives them like some sort of also community web, like it's access to more farmers that also have like probably similar crops as well in maybe another part of the world, that maybe can help also in those moments of saying, hey, I don't know, this is not working how I was expected. And that is a nice support to that.
Yeah, we're really trying to create that community, as you were saying. And one of the thing we have at CrowdFarming that we're very proud of, we're kind of centralized as a company because we work with, well, I didn't mention it, but about 30 European countries. Depending on the type of product, we can ship to about 30 European countries. We have everything centralized, if I may say so, in terms of, let's say, headquarters in Madrid. Then we have logistics centers in different countries where we have farmers. But it's true that then we work very strongly with 4 countries with the farmers. It's Spain, Italy, France, and Germany, and Austria also. It's growing a lot. So I would say 5 now. And what's very interesting is we're trying to create this kind of community, as you're saying, and it's really working to actually give them the opportunity to discuss between themselves and to learn, because there are so many things that you can learn. Then, of course, it might work or not work at your place, or it might be relevant or not. But I think feeling that they're not alone is really something that is really useful. And to do that, we have agronomists on the ground. So we have a very big team, I would say, considering the number we are about 200 people. We have more than 20 people that are agronomists that are based not in Madrid, but really on the ground, following up with the farmers. And so we create this relationship with the farmers, which also makes a difference. And that way we know what's happening, we get feedback, and we can also give them feedback in an easier way. So it's I think that's a very beautiful part of what we're doing.
You were slightly mentioning that there are farmers going from organically to back to conventional farming. And I'm wondering because, like regenerative agriculture and organically, as you said, there are so many benefits, not only for the planet, the soil, but also for us as humans, right? Like not in our next generations, etc. And I'm just wondering, what are then the reasons that in the end these farmers are changing back to conventional farming? Is it still the yield and currently the short-term focus?
Well, this is, I mean, it's a very delicate question. When I've been discussing with farmers that I have had to go through that, usually to start with, and I think you're very right in what you were saying, farmers, they usually love to be organic and regenerative because they love nature, usually. That's why they're working for that. So you will never, I think there is no farmer ever saying, oh, I love to spray this and kill. That's wonderful. Like it doesn't happen. The problem is that agriculture is very complicated. There are some very strong situations where you can have a plague that it's been 2 years you're not able to fight against, and you're using your production. And apart from that, you're seeing, I had one case like this, you're seeing that for organic, well, your product is being not, like, there is too much demand compared to the market, it seems, at least in the last years. So you're like, why am I doing this when this plague, I could definitely get rid of it with this product? I would get, okay, it's not organic, but I would get conventional fruit or veggie in that case, and I can sell it. Whereas I'm trying right now to do something where I'm not even sure there is a channel for it. So that's the problem. I think there was, as always, it's also a question of making sure there are channels for selling this organic product. And one of the tricky part has been in Europe after the start of the Ukraine war, like prices and inflation that was crazy. So obviously, I think everyone, if they can choose, would prefer, I mean, as an individual, as a consumer, to buy organic. But then the truth is, sometimes it's really, really difficult that everyone can afford that. So the market kind of slowed down, and many farmers that were hoping to be able to find their way on the market, maybe they didn't find a channel at that time. And so if you add to that the difficulties and the fact that you might be losing your production, and it's like it's not 1 year, it's been 2 years in a row, well, yeah, maybe you say, so sometimes farmers just, for example, it's quite common, they have various fields, they say, okay, this field, this, I will go back to conventional, the rest I will keep in organic and see. But yeah, it's happening. I really trust that if we manage, that's one of the things we're trying to do at CrowdFarming, to really find the way to make a fair price for everyone, whether it's a consumer and the farmer, then probably people knowing the benefits and knowing the situation, if the price difference is not completely crazy, will make the small effort of saying, okay, I will go for organic.
What about consumers? I mean, we were talking about the part of the sellers, but I'm also interested. What are the the things that like the parts of the message that really trigger like consumers to say, oh, yeah, let's give crowd farming a go?
That's a very good question. I think there's a part which is word of mouth now. For example, there are some countries where we start to be a bit known, like Germany or Austria, where they tasted the fruit at their neighbor's place, for example, and say, okay, and it seems like a nice movement. So there is that. I think part of the offer is also the idea of receiving fresh fruits directly at your doorstep, and European fruit, which is also sometimes, we're based in Spain, so we don't realize, but Spain is really like the garden of Europe.
The Garden of Europe, yeah.
Yes, so you have access to lots of varieties of fruit all the time. But in Northern Europe, even if you want to buy fruit from farmers nearby, there is a moment, especially right now we're in winter, where probably the nearest fruit and veggie you can buy are from Spain or Italy, because there is not much production right now. Or you decide to eat only very few types of fruit and veggie. But otherwise, so that's also, I think, the fact that we have this variety of option also is something that the consumer values, and it's directly from the farmers. So it's still very fresh, as we were saying. I think there is also the connection you make with the farmer, with where people are, we've not touched the adoption model we have, and the fact that you can meet the farmers and go and visit them. But I think it's
please
a big part.
Go into that. I think
because we have various models at CrowdFarming. You can buy boxes of fruit and you receive them at home. You have different type, mixed fruits, one fruit only, many options. But then you also have this adoption system where you as a consumer, you can adopt a tree, a piece of land, a cow from a farmer, and you will receive the harvest when it's harvest time. And it's something very special because with the adoption, you receive more news. You get into let's say, the close community of the farmer. You receive messages from them. And obviously you get the priority on the harvest. For example, when we have harvest shortage, which happen with some farmers because that's agriculture, it's unpredictable. Obviously, the first person that will receive their harvest are the adopters. The rest, if you bought just a box, you're not the priority at that time. And then they see the evolution because they have a picture of the tree, for example, every year. So this kind of thing creates a link, and you can go and meet the farmers. And there are many people. It can sound like a surprise, but it's great to go, and if you're on holidays in the area where you have a farmer, there are many people that buy in crowd farming that are saying, "Oh, I'll be over there at that time. Could I go and visit the farmer?" And it's a great opportunity. And so that's also another argument, obviously, because it's like, I know I'm buying through crowd farming and I know the farmer, I've been there. Yeah.
No, that is actually great. I had another question then that was related to the business model itself, more related to the fact that how do you keep then a business model that is fair for the farmer, but it still provides crowd farming with the opportunity to grow? Because when I think about it, it's like, okay, why is not every supermarket in the world they're trying to do something like this? And I understand that it must have its own drawbacks and its own challenges. But for me, and of course, I am quite biased into like how much food shall cost and stuff like that. But it's always so much the way to go that I am really interested in to know, like, how do you make this work?
I think it's hard, to be honest. As I was saying, it's really hard, especially like finding the right balance in terms of price, so that for consumer it's not crazy, for farmer it's fair, and as crowd farming we can survive. So it's work. It's a question of volume, just like for supermarket. On that, let's be honest. The more we sell, the easiest it is, because one of the big parts of our cost is logistics, picking, fulfillment, and then shipping. And so this is mathematics. The more you do, and the more efficient you are, the less costly it is. So on this, we're working a lot. And we have actually strategies depending on the country where we're shipping to try to reach another level in each country so that we have better shipment costs and so that we can lower prices and reach more markets. So it's all of it's typical volume strategy. What is for sure is that I think, to be honest, I think supermarkets are kind of trying to do that in some ways. I'm always surprised when I'm going to the supermarket myself, how lately they're showing you pictures of farmers and they're telling you, oh, these come from. So I think they're trying to reach that, or we pay a fair price to our farmers. So I think there's a huge movement because there is definitely a market for that. Where do we make the difference? I think is first home delivery, then it's definitely from the farmers, directly from the farmers, and people
not
do
greenwashing.
see it. And then I think our supermarket fruits and veggie, they have been harvested before ours. And so in terms of taste, okay, probably at CrowdFarming you have to wait a bit more because it's harvest on demand, so it's not possible to get it in 2 hours. But when the fruit arrives at your home, what we try to make sure that you really, like, people are writing to us and say, oh, I hadn't eaten tomatoes with this taste in so many years. So again, maybe when you're living in Southern Europe, Mediterranean place, you get easily good tomatoes, but it's not the case for everyone. And so I think this is part of what we're doing that is different. And even if there are supermarkets that are doing like very premium things and you can get gourmet, but I think it's not that easy to get this fresh feeling of a real taste of fruit and veggie.
I mean, the part of like where supermarkets are moving to that direction, I can see it. If you walk into some supermarkets here, they do like area products and then they showcase a picture of a farmer, but you can like the part is that it's not super transparent. So you don't know exactly where everything comes from, who created it, if it's still factory produced or, like what did the farmer actually do in this whole process? And so that's a part where you're very good in, right? So you're very transparent. Like you can clearly see where the products are coming from. And I wonder, Juliette, when like you do wonderful work, it's been fantastic. In the beginning, you said the other guys they saw already that there was demand and stuff. I can also imagine that in the first and early days and still you'll get a lot of challenges. Was there a moment that you were like, oh my god, like where did I put myself into? I want to go back to the insurance company.
Well, it's a very good question. And definitely, yes, we do have challenges every day. And it's not it's not as if everything was easy, far from this. I think, we have had many crises and still have, and it's part of the experience. Especially, again, as I was saying, we're working with agriculture for real. For example, right now, I don't know how's the weather in Barcelona, but in Madrid, it's been raining for the last 3 days. And it's been raining in Valencia, in Andalusia, and in Italy. So, for example, right now, we cannot ship this week because we ship fresh fruit. We cannot harvest if it's been raining. We have to wait for the sun to come out, the fruits and veggie to get actually dry, and then we can ship. So today was a day where we sent to all the consumers, hi, you're not going to receive your box this week because it's raining. So it's fine because we have a way of, but it's true that all of this is always a challenge, and it's really bad luck when you have at least Italy and Spain at the same time, and everywhere in Spain and Italy that is raining, because it's really like you're not shipping anything. So it's a bad week. But anyways, I remember at the beginning, there was one day where really, really, really we got scared, and I think I will always remember this because it was so unexpected, and it was like maybe our model doesn't make sense at all. So it was the beginning. We were shipping very little types of products. I was saying, I remember as I'm French, I was managing at that time a bit of logistics for France, and we had shipped not so many boxes, I think 150, which is for us was good at the time, but for France for this week. And it was arriving, I think, in a warehouse near Lyon with our logistics partner to be actually then distributed to the end consumer. And they call me and they say, we have the boxes, but we're not going to ship them to the end consumer. I was like, okay, why? Is there a problem? So I started to think, oh my God, the product, something happened, the box is open, something. They're like, no, we just decided we're not shipping food anymore because we think it doesn't enter into our policy. So we just had from the headquarters an information, anything that is food in our network, will not be shipped. It will be destroyed. And from now on, we cannot ship food anymore. And so obviously we were very small. We didn't have partners, lots of partners. It was just before COVID. So the logistics companies, maybe they weren't like right now, it's not so much of a problem. They've seen the interest in shipping food, but at that time it was not that easy. And we were like, okay, so I just lost 150 boxes. I need to reimburse everyone, the farmer, the consumer, and they're going to destroy it.
Oh, wow.
So we managed for for the little story to go and get them, but that was the only thing we could do. We could not ship anymore in France because I didn't have any other logistic partner. And the only thing they told me is we're setting up, like we have a branch for food, and the price was like 3 times the price we had in normal logistic. And the good thing about shipping oranges is that you don't need to keep them, especially in winter, in the fresh. Like there is no need to do that. So you don't need to pay 3 times. And if we were to pay 3 times, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it would be the most expensive orange on earth. So it was like, okay, what do we do? And that was really stressful. And especially because we started to say, okay, this is a huge player in France. We work with this player in the UK. We work with this player in Germany. Are they going to say the same in other countries? Is this going to be a general movement? And that was really, really stressful. But well, anyways, the story ends here. We found solution and we're still shipping and we have a great relationship with our logistics providers.
Maybe even COVID helps you in that sense, right? Because they had to delivering food and all these things became on a certain time the normality almost.
Yeah, but we work with them. I think that the key here is always to work as partners. We work with them on the design of the boxes, what was the problem, and in the end, we've found solutions. But it's true that that day was a really, really, well, and that week in general was a really, really complicated one.
I can imagine it, seriously. What about the future then, instead of the past of CrowdFarming? How do you see the company going for the next 5 years? What do you want to achieve?
So I think one of the big thing for us is really to make direct from producer the sales mainstream in Europe. So on that, we have lots of work to do because, I mean, we have, to give you an idea, about 500,000 active customer right now in Europe. So it's a good number, but it's just the beginning. If we really want to make this an alternative to what we're seeing as the traditional food supply chain. And obviously we want to give this our services, or at least enable more farmers to join. And this also is a lot of work because we're growing our categories of products. And as you can imagine, what we need to work on is lots of logistics, and packaging, and making sure that these products can be, that's definitely a lot of work we have to do. And then we want to make, like, every time closer the idea, like, of the farmer with the consumer. We're working on many things so that, there are so many tools right now we have. We just launched something that's called Mac Fields, which is Magdalena from our team going to the farmers and doing live streaming from the farms and explain what's happening. And we really, really want to create this link and to develop this connection between the farmers and the consumers. So that would be definitely another challenge. And then obviously, as I was saying before, we're selling in 30 countries in Europe, but we cannot sell everything all the time. We lack volume in many of the countries. So we want to be able to develop other markets. Definitely. And why not adding new farmers? Because I don't know, we're starting to sell very well in the UK and in Sweden, but we don't have farmers there because it's not that easy to, as we are working with agronomists on the ground, we accompany them. Like it's something to open a country on the farmer side is not that easy. It's almost easier on the consumer side because it's a question of logistics more than anything else. So you can find agreements with logistics partners and everything. But it's true that farmers, with the traceability that we want to ensure, it requires a bit of, so yeah, obviously I'd love for us to be able to grow in more countries with more farmers, because farmers also are asking for it.
Yeah. And more farmers potentially more transitions towards organic and
Obviously, yes, and regenerative, right? Yes, that would be great.
Exactly. 500,000 active customers, you said. So how many last year? How many products did you sold?
So in terms of boxes, we sold more than 1.2 million boxes around Europe. So boxes can be of different sizes, obviously. And we have, just to give you an idea, about 350 farmers working with us right now, which is not so many. But as I was saying, it's a decision we made to really, when farmers join the CrowdFarming, we want them to have demand so that it makes sense for them. It's always the same. So we have a waiting list on some categories because we monitor the demand to make sure that when they enter, they really can sell, because otherwise we discovered very quickly that it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's what you said in the beginning. I mean, you're very good in that testing. Also with the story towards the farmer, like creating first demand and then then go into it. Very well.
Yeah, no.
Was this already from the start like that, or was this along the way that you had to, that this testing part came into it?
I think it was something we had to do step by step, but I have to say I was very, very lucky because, as I was saying, we're 4 co-founders, and 2 of them with Naranjas del Carmen, Gonzalo and Gabriel, they had tested. The proof of concept was done. And actually one of the thinking was, okay, so Naranjas del Carmen is like a, let's say, local success, and it will remain because, as I was saying, they're still working on their company and they're still doing so many things. I mean, it's an impressive company, what they're doing and everything they're moving. But they were like, it's not like this is going to change the food supply chain and we want to do it. So we're doing we have a local hero. Let's see if we can give other farmers the opportunity to do the same. And I think that's where, to be honest, we got many ideas, like we could test, and we still can test many things thanks to them. And then they had this experience they are farmers, they knew what they were talking about. So it's definitely, and they had sold to end consumer. So we gained a lot of time on that. I have to say, I was not part of anything. I got very lucky because they had tested and did already a lot of work.
Sounds like a very good mix of backgrounds there.
Yeah. Yes, now I was just curious. Do you, what is the top 3 products that you use? Like, they are more bought around Europe. I guess it might change a lot during.
Do you want to guess otherwise?
We could try to guess.
Yeah, I don't know if she has the numbers. Do you have the numbers? Do you know it?
Sold in Europe? No, I mean, we looked at it the other day, but I have doubt. But I think we looked at fruit mainly the other day with the team. And I'm not sure I have the exact data, but I know the ones from CrowdFarming.
CrowdFarming. We mean CrowdFarming.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted the general information in Europe because we look at that also. But
no. In CrowdFarming, like the top 3.
The top 3, yes.
One must be oranges, I guess.
Yes, one of them is oranges.
I leave it up to you on.
You got me in this one. Really close, I would say mandarins, is possible?
Yes, mandarins and clementines are, yes.
Yeah.
It's historical also for us.
I see also a lot of avocados. I'm going to say avocados.
Yes, you're really good. Yes.
Because those are the ones that I also see the most in the app.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're also selling every year more and more mangoes, even if we actually reached a moment that was in 2023 where we actually ran out of mangoes.
Where do they grow the mangoes normally? In the south of Spain?
South of Spain, yes, and they are starting to grow them also in Sicily, but mainly south of Spain.
Nice. Hey, Juliette, we fired you with questions, and now it's your opportunity to ask us a question.
Okay, I need to think it over.
Don't worry.
Yeah, and it can be anything. Huh? I mean, what did I do today?
I'm not going to put it that easy on you. Don't worry. No.
I'm not going to put you. No, okay. This I leave it to Andres as well. Right?
I would be interested for one of you to tell me, because you're seeing so many things at Tomorrow's Bites, and maybe if you've seen other marketplace models and everything, one of the biggest challenge you've seen in general in marketplaces and that you think could be useful for us, because I'm sure I can learn a lot from you too. That would be my first question, and I will have a second one.
Oh, you will have two? But it's a good question. I mean, I think my perspective is that the struggle of the marketplaces normally goes with consumers, and in that sense, I believe you do a good job because of the whole part of. It's actually part of our ideas on how we could support a lot of times the food industry is about we need to showcase more like the stories of the people behind the food because that inspires to sell. And I believe that is something that in general marketplaces or even brands themselves a lot of times struggle a lot with, and definitely that is something that you do really well. That is not an advice I can give you, but more like a kudos. Well done.
Working. Yeah, I'm also biased, but transparency is one of the things I believe that more and more, especially our generation and generation before, is looking at, and that is all because the food industry has it on themselves, basically lacking for years on doing this, and that left a lot of questions, and you can see it on social media, right? It's crazy how big.
I believe that our generation has in some way a responsibility of we are the ones who need to take care of the future because now the other generations are not going to do so or whatever. And sometimes it's really hard to not be able to outsource that responsibility. Like you have to take care of it, or you have to be checking. I don't know, what is the new food scandal? What is like? It can be PFAS or plasticizers. Okay, so what I'm eating is plasticizers, and a lot of times that also brings you to a moment. It's like I don't care anymore. I cannot care because otherwise it's going to take me too much mental space.
Yes,
and that
definitely true.
So working in that, I believe that is like helping people to be able to just say, okay, I can outsource the responsibility of not having to be looking into every single detail, stuff like that.
Yeah, which is where you need to trust definitely the brand, and that's where it's well, very interesting. Thank you. My second question would be, after talking with me, being very honest, will you try to buy more organic fruit and veg, even if it's a bit more expensive, or I didn't convince you enough? You already do.
Okay. I am
good.
in the process. I am in the process, and not only that, I was actually thinking yesterday when I was checking the CrowdFarming that the blueberries look really good.
They are. They are.
Yes.
It's one of our best sellers too. Look, so it's not in the top 3, but it's very close. So yeah.
So probably I'm gonna order a box. Probably.
That's a great idea.
Because I saw them, and now that we're moving out from the winter, I feel like something like less winter. So
at least you convinced one person here.
Well, which is good for me. Everything is good.
Okay, and then Juliette, we always end our podcast the same way, in a really good note. Difficult question maybe, but what is your favorite food or dish?
Okay, I'm going to say something that's really sad. My favorite fruit is raspberries. And I convinced my team to do some tests for shipping raspberries because they were farmers telling me, no, maybe if we manage to do blueberries and maybe with this variety and everything. And it was a complete disaster. So we still don't have raspberries on CrowdFarming.
Yes.
And I'm not sure we'll have them soon. So yeah.
I mean, if I buy raspberries, have these mashed ones.
Yeah, I know. It's like comes with the package,
always.
already.
You know if you do, but it's a very delicate fruit. But yeah, I dreamed of it at one time, but the test was not very conclusive.
Well, another goal for in these 5 years. It has to be like
exactly. Get raspberries on CrowdFarming. Let's see if it's possible.
They need to be in the assortment. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Juliette, thanks a lot for the conversation. I think it's truly inspiring what you're doing. I think we talk with a lot of people that they are doing great things in the podcast, and I always want to support them. But in particular, with what you do, I feel like a great connection. I think that it really represents values that in Tomorrow's Bites we really think that are important for the food industry. So thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing all your insights. For anybody that listens to the podcast, there will be also like the link so they can go to CrowdFarming and check all the assortment, because I believe that if more people...
I think she has convinced more than once.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, yeah.
The only way that we can actually move into a food system that is what we believe, at least, is if more people joins into helping and supporting initiatives like the ones that you were doing.
With the money, you can decide your future.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be able to discuss about CrowdFarming, and I really had fun. So thank you. It was a great conversation. Even if you were 2 and not 1-to-1, it's fine.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Free audio post-production. by alphonic.com.